Bonjour et bienvenue à tous dans ce Summercamp spécial Personnel Branding France. Aujourd'hui, j'ai l'honneur et le privilège de faire 3 interviews, donc on se retrouve maintenant et ensuite entre midi et 13h. Alors pour ceux qui ne me connaissent pas, je suis Lola Cuvelier, cofondatrice du site Personnel Branding France, ainsi que de ce compte Instagram, et je suis aussi fondatrice de ma propre agence de branding. Alors bienvenue à tous, je suis vraiment ravie de vous retrouver. Et aujourd'hui, donc pour le Summer Camp, c'est simple, l'idée c'est de vous apporter vraiment une vision globale de ce que c'est que le personal branding, de vous apporter des pépites qui pourraient vous aider à incarner votre marque personnelle au quotidien et aussi de vous permettre de rencontrer des professionnels du personal branding, des marques personnelles qui ont été accompagnées et des personnes qui vraiment incarnent au plus profond le personal branding. Alors aujourd'hui, j'ai la chance et le privilège de recevoir une personne qui nous vient de assez loin, d'Australie. Elle s'appelle Annemarie Cross. Elle est spécialiste en personal branding et tout particulièrement en podcast. Donc elle fait des podcasts autour du personal branding. Donc l'interview, elle sera en anglais. J'essaierai pour ceux qui ne comprennent pas bien l'anglais, de récupérer, de traduire au maximum ce qu'elle dit. Après, c'est vrai que dans le cadre de l'interview, je l'ai déjà vécu la dernière fois avec Amalia, c'est un peu compliqué de traduire parce que je suis dans l'énergie de l'interview. Mais en tout cas, j'essaierai au maximum de vous dire les informations essentielles de ce qu'elle dit en français. Alors, je ne sais pas si elle a réussi à se connecter. Alors... On va la laisser arriver dans quelques instants, elle ne devrait pas tarder. Alors... Donc pour ceux qui ne l'auraient pas suivi, effectivement, je l'ai fait à 9h30 ce matin pour les Français parce que tout simplement avec le décalage horaire en Australie, ça faisait un petit peu tard pour midi ou 18h. D'où le fait que ce soit aujourd'hui à 9h30. En règle générale, c'est soit midi, midi et demi, 18h ou 18h30. Vous êtes informés pendant la semaine des prochains lives qui auront lieu le jeudi, toujours le jeudi. Parce que tout simplement, c'est un choix de ma part de vraiment concentrer toutes les interviews sur le jour de jeudi. Voilà. Alors... Ah, super. Elle arrive. Hi!
Hello, sorry I'm late. Tech
No
difficulties, the internet.
No problem. The distance between us is
A
so
long
long.
with distance.
Yes.
I'm glad to connect.
Thank you for acceptation of this interview. Can you present you, please?
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
I just say you are an expert of personal branding and for podcasting.
That's correct. So I've been doing podcasting for about 12 years now. And so taking all that I have learned through personal branding and really positioning the personal brand from a host perspective. So we do a lot of personal branding from, you know, your attributes and how we bring that forward in the workplace. But now I look at it, well, how do we identify a personal brand and bring that to life in a podcast as the host, as you're, you know, interacting with your guests, and of course, you know, the community that you're building, your listenership, your audience. How do you build that connection and that community with them with that, you know, consistent personal brand and message?
Okay. So, what's your way, your past before the personal branding? What did you do?
Okay. What did I do? So I've always been in the career industry. So before I started doing studies in personal branding, I was doing more resume development, interview coaching, so helping executives find a career that they loved or getting paid what they're worth. And then I realized that, you know, there was more aspects to being able to, how do we present ourselves, not just on paper, but obviously in person, how can we differentiate ourselves? And that's kind of then got me interested in personal branding in that field. But yeah, always been in the career industry, working with executives and professionals. And now, of course, I work with entrepreneurs and business owners in the podcasting space.
Great. And when you discovered the personal branding?
Oh, when did I discover that? Many years ago. I think it would have been back in 2008, 2009, perhaps, even maybe a bit earlier, because back then, of course, we were talking about personal branding and positioning in the marketplace. And then we started looking at personal branding online. How do we, you know, from domain names to branding online. And so it's been a real interesting journey. Back then, people didn't even know what personal brand was. They thought it was a fad. Oh, that's just a fad word. Who knows personal brand? That's, you know, branding's for businesses. But yeah, it would have been back early, 2007, around that time, 8, 9, 10 is when I really started looking deeply into it. So it's been some time.
Great. And what's changements you see in your life since you are discovered personal branding?
So what changes and advancements?
Yes.
What changes and advancements? You know, one of the things that I have noticed different now, that a lot more people are aware of what personal branding is. They've heard of it and they realize that it's not just a fad, but rather when we have a look at what individual personal brands are, they can actually add value to a company brand. It's also been far more familiar that if you understand what your personal brand is, that's such a great way, a unique way that you can position yourself, not just ahead of what everyone else is doing, but add value, because you recognize, where am I unique? What are my strengths? What are my attributes? So that I really can leverage those without, without always looking at what other people are doing. So I've seen a real change in recognizing and people spending time on being far more self-aware, which I think is good, because often if we're not self-aware, we can't consistently and intentionally show up at the best in the workplace. I think also too, now organizations are recognizing the value of helping their staff to be able to understand their personal brand, because that's going to impact how they relate to their team, how they relate to key stakeholders in the business. So I think it's really advanced well, and people are understanding it, and now they're being far more purposeful and intentional in how they interact with others. And I think that's always a positive.
Great. And in Australia, yeah, how the market for personal branding?
How's the market?
Yes.
Yeah, at the moment, because of what's happened in the world with COVID, I'm in Melbourne, Victoria, and we're now in the second lockdown. And so that's been a real interesting time. But thankfully, you know, many of the people that I'm working with, and even some of the, you know, kind of people in businesses are starting to recognize that there is more opportunity online, and they're starting to now move online. They've been forced to, but then they realize, especially for service-based businesses, who a lot of my clients recognize, that their business opportunity and client base is actually global, which I think is exciting. But yeah, at the moment, we're still in the second lockdown, so it's quite challenging. We've got curfews and, you know, all of that stuff going on at the moment. But so we've got, hi, Monica. Good to see you here.
Great. Okay, great. Because in Europe, we see that lots of people talk about personal branding, but never embody that.
Yes.
It's just self-marketing for them, and we work for to show the power of the personal branding. So for you, what's the personal branding, and what's the difference between personal branding and self-marketing?
Yes. Well, I think personal branding really is a way that people can be empowered to understand what makes me unique, how am I distinguishable? Because I say to people, if you really find out what uniquely distinguishes you, because if you are distinguishable, you are uncopyable, because no one has your story, your journey, the challenges that you've overcome, your personality, characteristics, your quirky sense of humor or other quirkiness. And so I think when people realize that, then they're able to better leverage their unique skills and gifts and show up really authentically in the marketplace, if that marketplace is working for another company or whether that marketplace is working in their own business. And I think with a personal brand versus self-marketing, when you show up as your personal brand, you can interact with people, have conversations with people, have meetings with people, and still intentionally, exude, I know that's a word we often use, exude your personal brand, but not necessarily be personal marketing, like for going for a job. I think every interaction and every conversation, even sometimes the things that we don't say, can impact our reputation and the results that we get. So I think personal branding is more about reputation, the promise of experience and expectation for others around you, whether that be a colleague, a boss, potential customer. But then, of course, when you look at personal branding or self-marketing, that is when you're really positioning, a program or service yourself for a specific job. And so there may be some different things that you might use, like some documentation or the words that you would say. But how you approach and express your brand is going to be, a little bit different, because the environment or the nuance of what you're talking about is going to be different, because you want a different outcome, of course. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So can you explain to us your specialty? Because I am very interested of podcasting. We want to develop that for personal branding funds. So can you explain to us what's your specialty, and what's your start with that, and what you want to in the future?
Yeah, great. Love. Thank you for that question. So with the podcasting that I'm doing, one of the things that I love to help people with is not only create a communication channel like the podcast, because a podcast is a way that you can share your voice and your message and interview others, but really look at your business model, because many of my clients are businesses. Look at their business model and look at integrating their podcast as part of their marketing, as part of their relationship building, and nurturing their ideal customer through the buyer's journey, or nurturing existing customers to maintain their business. So you might have customers that you can then nurture and then upsell to higher programs, or some programs that they evolve and work into. So I look at a podcast platform as being integrated with all of the other ways that you may market, but really creating a tool or a pipeline that nurtures your audience, from listeners into leads and then inquiries and ultimately paying customers. And so I also look at it through the lens of every single individual, especially that I work with, are experts, they're specialists in their field, they've got a body of knowledge, and they want to position themselves as a trusted authority. So there's certain things that they have to include in a podcast that helps that potential customer go from, I'm just hearing about this particular person, to I really want to work with that person because I love what she stands for, what she offers, and the solutions is really what I'm looking to achieve as well. So it really covers a lot of different aspects so that businesses can start to generate leads from their very first episode. So there's kind of techniques that we use with that. But of course, with a podcast, you've got the ability to speak into someone's life. There's nothing more powerful than someone listening to you. And if you build that consistent business, you really can nurture that relationship quite quickly. And then if it's integrated with things like you're doing now with lives on Instagram and maybe even across other platforms, the next call to action would be to sign up for your podcast series. And then, you have all of the different touch points, your brand touch points. It really can support that ideal customer going from just getting to know you to let's have a conversation. I want to find out how I can work with you. So that's really how I'm positioning the podcast. Build your reach, build your reputation as that trusted authority, and build your revenue from the very first episode. So it's, and so my goal is to help other change makers and people who have a vision and a mission to make a difference, one message, one podcast at a time, to bring their message to the world in a much bigger way. That's kind of my mission and purpose. And of course, personal branding is very much, a core component of that as well.
Yes. We all agree about that. We think that personal branding is like a Swedish, yes, knife. I don't know if you know that. It's a French expression, maybe. That personal branding is global. You can coach some people in their career, in their couples, in their orientations. It's very large for discover the personal branding, because
it has. Yeah, with the tools that we have available, that's right. We can speak to people all over the world, can't we? Tonight, this evening, I'll be presenting about personal branding and podcasting to a group of HR directors in the UK. So you can work from anywhere and support any people. And a podcast, the brilliant thing about a podcast is that when you publish it and you have the right SEO and all the right strategies in place, you can have people that are listening to you from all over the world. In fact, one of my shows was syndicated on a national radio station in Zimbabwe, and another one of my podcasts is syndicated in a national radio station here in Perth, which is on the other side of Australia. And so you never know where your voice ends up. And hearing your voice, hearing someone's voice is very powerful, because they can hear the nuance in your voice. They can hear you laughing, and they really get to go on an experience with you when they're listening to your podcast. So it's quite powerful.
Okay. Yeah. And what you say to the people to not do action to take their podcasting?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I service-based business, I've just got a message on there. My battery is getting low, so hopefully we'll be able to finish off. I'm sure we will. One of the things that if you are a service-based business who is looking to use your platform with your podcast to generate leads, inquiries, to position yourself as that thought leader, you really have to have your core business foundations in place first. That's one of the first things I say to my clients. And the core business foundations is have a really clear idea on your lucrative niche. This is who are you speaking to? Who's your ideal client? What are they struggling with? You need to know who that person is so that you can start to create content that's very much valuable to them, and that's going to be something that they really listen to you because you're that thought leader in that area. You need to be clear on that signature brand, that personal brand, and what that consistent message. If you're too many things across too many platforms, people will get confused. So signature brand, having a signature system, IP, that you can talk about so that people can see, oh, well, not only is that strong personal brand, the solutions that I'm offering, I love the program that she's talking about, the systems, the steps that she uses. And then you have to have a number of different programs to be able to work with people. And then I call it a digital asset, and that's to list build, you know, something that is an irresistible signature giveaway so that as soon as you start podcasting, you've got an opportunity to then to start to build your list and get people to nurture through your funnel, you know, your relationship building, which is emails and maybe a newsletter. So that's really important. Core business foundations first. And then on top of that, you can build a podcast strategy, because that means if you've got core business foundations and your message is working well, you're already generating customers, you know that you can then scale that with a podcast. So that's kind of the steps that I would say. Get your core business foundations first. Start working with a few clients and you'll know that your message is working. Then you're ready to get it on a podcast. And I always say message before the make and model of the microphone. You know, a lot of people think, what technology do I need for my podcast? But I think get message clear first, personal brand clear first as well, because you may be talking about a topic that thousands of other podcast hosts are talking about, but they don't have your story, they don't have your voice, they don't have your mannerisms, they don't create the similar experience that you do on your podcast that someone else has. And people will come to the topic, they'll come back for the host. So if you know what your personal brand is and you create that experience consistently on every single episode, that's why people will come back and subscribe, will listen. And when you do a call to action like, hey, my personal branding program starts again next month. If you want to stand out, get hired by your ideal client or, you know, your dream job, then let's have a chat and see if that program is a good fit. You can start doing that consistently then. So those are a couple of tips that I would say to someone who's thinking of starting a podcast.
Great. Thank you very much for that. I just speak in French 2 minutes and after I come back. Donc, pour ceux qui n'ont pas tout compris en anglais, donc Annemarie, elle nous vient d'Australie. Elle a travaillé dans des grosses entreprises et ensuite elle a rencontré le personal branding et elle s'est formée et elle s'est spécialisée donc dans le podcast. Donc son approche, elle est assez sympa et assez particulière. C'est que en gros, elle explique que pour faire un bon podcast et pour se lancer dans le podcast, en fait, il faut avoir une marque personnelle forte et des bases de branding qui sont fortes, parce que sinon votre podcast ne va pas fonctionner dans le temps. Donc sa clé en fait pour démarrer, c'est vraiment d'avoir une marque personnelle forte et de vraiment d'avoir créé ses fondations, en tout cas d'avoir révélé ses fondations de qui on est vraiment à l'intérieur. Okay, what's your offer? What's your program for for people who want to work with you?
Yeah, well, I've got a 90-day idea to launch your Thought Leader podcast. So we start from idea and we go through all of the different stages together. And that program runs once a quarter. Actually, the new program starts again in September, late August, early September. So if people are interested, reach out. I'll share more information. But we really, step by step, what's your personal brand? What's, how do you get that, express that on a podcast, right through to finding the right guests, putting together a show, how to interview, how to present yourself, right through to launch and creating a really solid podcast platform, which is really exciting because we launch together and we do a launch party where we'll live stream everybody who's going through that program with their podcast to the world. So, but it's 90-day idea to launch your Thought Leader podcast.
Great. So thank you very much for all of informations. Where we can touch you? Where we can
podcasting, yes.
Reach
out for sure. Podcastingwithpurpose.com. And if someone is interested and maybe is listening to the recording, if you've got this on our IGTV after, the best thing to do is to sign up. I've got a free mini course which helps them get understanding clearer about podcasting. So it's podcastingwithpurpose.com/intensive, and that's so INTENSIVE, so podcastingwithpurpose.com/intensive. Then they can get a bit more information. There's a checklist, there's some videos there, and then the next time we launch and open the doors for the 90-day idea to launch your Thought Leader podcast, then they'll be on the list and we'll let them know when that starts.
Great, thank you very much. So have you got some more information you want to share with us?
One last insight that I'll leave for people is, so often people think, there's so much tech that I need to learn. I'm worried about microphones and things like that. And I say to people, you know what? The technology is really 10% of what you have to focus and worry about or concern about. The 90% is getting your message, your brand, your offering, how you're going to position yourself in the market. That's really important. Don't let technology worry, stop you from launching your podcast. Get all of the other things in place first, because then when you launch, you'll be speaking to your ideal customer or your ideal future boss company. And that's important. Don't worry about the technology.
Great. Thank you very, very,
Thank
very
you.
much.
You're
Just
welcome.
I translate in French for a French audience. Donc, ce qu'elle explique, c'est que donc elle propose des offres, des programmes en ligne pour comment faire des podcasts et comment être à l'aise en podcast. Vous pouvez la retrouver donc sur son Instagram et il y a son site internet qui est juste en dessous de sa biographie. Annemarie Coach, c'est son identifiant sur Instagram. De toute façon, je vous le remettrai avec le replay. Et donc, elle nous disait que concrètement, si vous vous lancez dans le podcast, ne vous souciez pas trop de la technique parce que c'est que 30% du métier. En fait, tout le reste, les 70% restants, c'est vraiment le travail sur sa propre marque, sur son personal brand, et que c'est vraiment là où vous allez apporter de la valeur ajoutée à votre audience. Donc, privilégiez vraiment le travail sur la marque personnelle, sur votre identité à vous et vos fondamentaux, plutôt que sur les outils. Ça viendra après, ça viendra naturellement quand vous serez clair et cohérent et constant sur votre propre marque. Great. So thank you very much, Annemarie. We stay in contact,
Yes.
and we have a lot more. We have lots of interview in French and in English today, and each Tuesday for summer, because it's Summercamp, and after I developed some interviews, and I think it's very interesting, your specialty. So I want to invite you to a bigger interview with Zoom. But we stay in contact, so we
will.
That.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And I must say, I love the French language, the accent. It's beautiful language. Nice to connect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay. You
Bonne
too.
journée à
Bye.
tous et à tout à l'heure, donc à midi pour les prochaines interviews. See you.
Bye.
Bye.